Ladies and gentlemen, there is a yearning in the hearts of men and women alike, a yearning that speaks to the deepest part of who we are. It's a search for fulfillment, a search that many of us spend a lifetime pursuing. We look for it in the pleasures of life, in the accumulation of wealth, and in the exertion of power. But if we are honest, we know that these pursuits, while they may satisfy for a time, ultimately leave us empty. The things of this world, whether it is sex, money, or power, can never truly fill the void that exists within us. In a world where we are bombarded daily with messages that these are the keys to happiness, it's easy to believe that they hold the answer to all of life's problems. The world tells us to chase after these things, to grasp them with all our might, and to find our worth in them. But there is something deeper, something far more satisfying that calls to us from the beyond, something that is not of this world, but in fact transforms everything about how we live in it. Let us begin with sex. The world has twisted and distorted this beautiful gift that God has given us. It has turned it into a commodity, something that can be bought, sold, and used for selfish pleasure. The allure of physical attraction, the promises of fleeting pleasure, these are all things that speak to our deepest desires. But there's something tragic about it all. For as we indulge in these desires, we often find ourselves more empty than when we began. The momentary pleasure fades, and what we're left with is not fulfillment, but a deep, aching emptiness. True fulfillment does not come from the fleeting pleasures of the flesh. True fulfillment comes when we recognize that sex, like all things, was meant to be a beautiful expression of love, a love that is not self-seeking, but sacrificial. When sex is placed in the proper context, within the bounds of a loving, committed relationship, it can be a reflection of something far greater. It is a symbol of the love that God has for His people, a love that is faithful, unconditional, and eternal. But when we pursue sex as a means of self-gratification, we miss the deeper meaning, and in so doing, we rob ourselves of true fulfillment. Similarly, the pursuit of money holds a similar promise of satisfaction. How often do we hear that wealth is the key to success? That if we only have enough money, we will be happy, secure, and free. We chase after riches, hoping that they will grant us peace and joy. But the reality is that no matter how much we accumulate, it is never enough. The more we have, the more we desire. The cycle is endless, and it only deepens the sense of dissatisfaction that we feel. Money in and of itself is not evil. It is the love of money, the obsession with it, that leads to destruction. In the pursuit of wealth, we often find ourselves losing sight of the things that matter most: our relationships, our integrity, our sense of purpose. We become consumed by the desire to acquire more, and in the process, we lose ourselves. True fulfillment comes not from what we possess, but from what we give. It comes from a heart that seeks to bless others, that understands that wealth is not an end in itself, but a means to serve, to help, to make a difference in the lives of those around us. And then there is power, the desire to control, to influence, to hold sway over others. How many of us at one point or another have sought power in some form or zone? We long for the respect, the authority, the ability to shape the world around us according to our desires. But power, too, can be a deceptive mistress. The more we seek it, the more it demands from us. It robs us of peace and joy, replacing it with anxiety, fear, and a constant need to prove ourselves. We begin to live for the approval of others, for the recognition that comes with authority, and we lose sight of what truly matters. True power does not come from the ability to control others. It comes from the ability to serve others. It comes from a humble heart that recognizes that true greatness is not found in lording over others, but in lifting them up. It comes from a life that is focused not on personal gain, but on the well-being of those around us. The greatest among us, as history has shown, are those who have chosen to serve rather than to be served. It is in giving up our own desire for power that we discover the true strength of character and the fulfillment that comes from serving a greater purpose. So where then is true fulfillment to be found? It is not found in the things of this world. It is not found in sex or money or power. These things are fleeting. They are temporary. They cannot satisfy the deep longing of our hearts, but there is a fulfillment that is available to each of us, a fulfillment that goes beyond the things of this world. True fulfillment is found when we place our trust in something greater than ourselves. It is found when we surrender our lives to the one who created us, the one who knows the deepest longings of our hearts and is able to satisfy them. The fulfillment we seek is found in a relationship with God, a relationship that is based not on what we can get from Him, but on who He is. It is found in recognizing that we are not the center of the universe, but that we are loved and cherished by the one who made us. When we surrender our lives to God, when we allow Him to lead us and guide us, we discover that true fulfillment is not about what we can gain for ourselves, but about what we can give to others. It is found in the freedom that comes from living for something greater than ourselves. It is found in the peace that comes from knowing that we are loved unconditionally, that our worth is not determined by our success, our possessions, or our power, but by who we are in the eyes of our Creator. In the end, the pursuit of sex, money, and power is empty. They can never provide the satisfaction that our souls crave. But when we turn to the one who created us and trust Him with our lives, we find that true fulfillment is not only possible, but it is abundant. It is the fulfillment that comes from knowing that we are loved, that we have purpose, and that we are part of a greater story that is unfolding even now. And that, my friends, is the true call to fulfillment. True fulfillment cannot be found in the fleeting pleasures of sex, money, or power, despite the way the world constantly tells us otherwise. These pursuits promise happiness, security, and satisfaction, but they often fail to deliver the deep, lasting contentment that our hearts truly desire. We are told that these are the keys to success, that by gaining them, we will be made whole. But in reality, they often leave us feeling emptier than before. Sex, in its distorted and overly commercialized form, is one of the most obvious examples. The world has taken a beautiful, intimate part of human life and turned it into something transactional, something that can be used and discarded without thought of its deeper meaning. We are often led to believe that sex is the ultimate expression of fulfillment, that it's the pinnacle of pleasure and intimacy. Yet for many it proves to be an empty pursuit. Once the momentary pleasure fades, what remains? For too many, the emotional emptiness and the longing for something more become even more apparent. True fulfillment in sex comes not from the act itself, but from the love, trust, and commitment that give it meaning. When sex is disconnected from its deeper purpose, it becomes something shallow, something that cannot meet the soul's deepest needs. Money also promises fulfillment, yet it often leaves a deep sense of dissatisfaction in its wake. In a society that measures success by wealth and material possessions, it is easy to believe that more money will bring peace, happiness, and security. We work tirelessly to acquire it, convinced that it will answer our problems and fulfill our desires. But no matter how much we earn or how many possessions we accumulate, there always seems to be more to want, more to achieve. Money in itself is not evil, but when it becomes the sole focus of our lives, it can easily consume us, leaving us disconnected from our true purpose. The pursuit of wealth can often lead to a life of anxiety, comparison, and isolation. The more we focus on material gain, the more we lose sight of what truly matters: relationships, peace, and the joy that comes from giving, not hoarding. Power, too, holds the illusion of fulfillment. The desire to control, to influence, and to be recognized as important can be a driving force in many people's lives. In a world where authority and status are often associated with success, it's easy to chase after power. But this pursuit, too, often leads to disappointment. Power does not provide lasting peace or contentment. Instead, it can bring stress, fear, and isolation. The more we focus on gaining power over others, the more we find ourselves trapped in a cycle of self-preservation and the constant need to prove ourselves. True power is not about dominance or control, but about humility and service. It comes from lifting others up, not from pushing them down, and it is only found when we stop seeking to control everything and instead allow ourselves to be shaped by something greater than our own ambitions. The truth is, these pursuits, sex, money, and power, are all distractions. They promise fulfillment, but fail to provide the deep sense of peace and purpose that our hearts long for. They offer temporary satisfaction, but that satisfaction is fleeting. The more we chase after these things, the more we realize that they cannot fill the void inside us. True fulfillment comes from a deeper source, something that is not dependent on circumstances or external possessions. It is found when we turn our hearts towards something greater than ourselves and recognize that lasting joy and peace come not from what we accumulate or experience in this world, but from the inner transformation that comes when we find our purpose and meaning in something eternal. Sex, when placed in its proper context, becomes a reflection of sacrificial love, not self-gratification. In a world where sexual expression is often reduced to a momentary physical experience, we can easily forget that sex was designed for far more than just pleasure. It was created to be an intimate, life-giving act that mirrors the love, commitment, and unity that should exist between two people. But the world's view of sex is often one of quick satisfaction and personal gain, separating it from its deeper, more meaningful purpose. At its core, sex is meant to be an expression of a deep, committed relationship. It is a bond that strengthens the connection between two people who choose to love one another, to give of themselves for the other's well-being. In a marriage, sex becomes a powerful means of communicating trust, loyalty, and affection. It is an act that reflects the selflessness of true love, where each partner is more concerned with the other's needs than their own desires. The act itself becomes a symbol of the mutual respect and devotion shared between them. But in a world that often views sex as a tool for personal gratification, we miss out on the depth of connection that it was meant to foster. When sex is approached as an act of love, rather than an act of self-interest, it transforms from a fleeting pleasure into something far more profound. It becomes an expression of trust and vulnerability, an act where both individuals give themselves fully, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. In this way, sex is not just about the physical union, but about the emotional and spiritual connection that deepens as two people choose to become one. This deeper connection fosters intimacy that goes beyond the physical and is rooted in the shared commitment to love, honor, and cherish each other. Yet in many cases, sex is detached from this higher purpose. It is pursued outside of the sacred context of marriage, often with no thought of the lasting consequences it may have on one's heart, mind, or relationships. It becomes about what we can take from the experience rather than what we can give. The result is often a hollow experience where the physical pleasure fades quickly, leaving an emptiness that is hard to fill. When sex is used simply to satisfy personal desires, it loses its deeper meaning and its power to build lasting connection. The world's culture often reduces sex to an object of desire, commodifying it as selling it as a quick fix to loneliness or dissatisfaction. Sex is marketed as a way to find happiness, fulfillment, and even validation. However, this only serves to increase the confusion and emptiness that many people feel. When sex is pursued outside of the context of love and commitment, it fails to provide the deeper sense of fulfillment that many seek. Instead of building emotional intimacy and trust, it often leads to brokenness, confusion, and hurt. True fulfillment in sexual intimacy is only found when it is experienced in the context of a committed, loving relationship. When two people come together in mutual respect, love, and selflessness, sex becomes a reflection of something greater, a symbol of the sacred union that exists between them. In this context, sex is no longer an act of self-gratification, but an act of giving, a reflection of the sacrificial love that should define every relationship. Money is a tool for service and blessing others, not a means to fill an endless void. In today's society, wealth is often seen as the ultimate indicator of success and fulfillment. People work tirelessly to accumulate more, believing that the next paycheck, the next acquisition, or the next investment will finally bring them happiness. But the pursuit of money, when viewed as an end in itself, often leads to disappointment. No matter how much one earns, there always seems to be more to acquire, more to achieve. The constant striving for wealth can create a cycle where contentment is never fully realized. True fulfillment with money comes when it is viewed as a resource for helping others and making a positive impact in the world. Money in and of itself is not bad, it's simply a tool that can be used for good or ill. When we shift our perspective and see wealth not as something to hoard, but as something to be shared, it changes how we approach life. The ability to bless others with our resources, whether it's through charity, supporting those in need, or investing in causes that align with our values, brings a sense of purpose and fulfillment that the accumulation of wealth alone cannot provide. Money can be a means of freedom, but only when it is not the central focus of our lives. When we are no longer enslaved by the constant desire for more, we are free to use our resources for meaningful work and for enriching the lives of others. True wealth is found in generosity, in the joy of giving and knowing that our resources have contributed to something larger than ourselves. By using money as a tool for service, we unlock a deeper, lasting sense of fulfillment that far surpasses any material gain. Power is found not in control, but in the ability to humbly serve and uplift others. In a world that often measures success by the authority one holds or the influence one exerts, the pursuit of power can become an all-consuming ambition. People strive for positions of control, seeking to dominate or dictate the lives of others, believing that this will bring them respect, admiration, and fulfillment. Yet despite the allure of power, those who seek it for its own sake often find themselves lonely, fearful, and increasingly burdened. The desire to control others often comes with a heavy price, stress, anxiety, and an overwhelming need to maintain one's position. True power, however, is not found in dominating others, but in lifting them up. The most powerful individuals in history are often those who chose to serve, those who used their influence for the betterment of others. Real power comes from the ability to inspire, to encourage, and to help others reach their fullest potential. It is found in acts of humility, in the willingness to put others' needs before our own, and in leading by example. The person who humbly serves others, who seeks to build up rather than tear down, holds a power that is lasting and transformative. When power is rooted in selflessness and service, it fosters trust, respect, and a sense of unity. Instead of creating division or resentment, it brings people together, allowing them to work toward a common goal. This kind of power is not based on fear or manipulation, but on love, integrity, and a commitment to the well-being of others. It is the power to change lives, not through force, but through compassion, understanding, and support. True strength is not measured by what we can control, but by how we use our influence to serve and elevate those around us. True fulfillment comes from a relationship with God where purpose, peace, and unconditional love are found. In a world that constantly pushes material success, fleeting pleasures, and personal achievements as the keys to happiness, it's easy to overlook the deeper, eternal fulfillment that comes from knowing and walking with God. While the things of this world promise satisfaction, they often fail to deliver lasting peace or purpose. They leave us constantly striving but never truly satisfied. The truth is that the deepest longings of our hearts can only be met through a connection with the Creator. When we open our hearts to God, we discover a peace that surpasses understanding, a sense of purpose that transcends our circumstances, and a love that is unconditional and never-ending. God's love does not depend on our performance, our achievements, or our ability to measure up. It is freely given regardless of who we are or what we've done. This kind of love fills the void in our hearts that no amount of wealth, power, or pleasure can ever fill. It provides a foundation for our lives that is unshakable no matter what challenges we face. In a relationship with God, we also find our true purpose. We are not here by accident, and we are not defined by the roles we play in society. Our worth is not determined by what we own or what we achieve. Instead, we find meaning in being part of something greater than ourselves, a purpose that is eternal, grounded in love, and shaped by a higher calling. This sense of purpose provides direction and clarity in a world that often feels aimless. Through our relationship with God, we are invited to experience fulfillment that goes beyond anything the world can offer. It is a fulfillment that is rooted in love, peace, and the eternal hope found in Him. In the end, the pursuit of sex, money, and power, though tempting, will never lead to the true fulfillment that our hearts long for. These things, while they may provide temporary satisfaction or success, ultimately fall short of meeting our deepest desires. Sex, when detached from love and commitment, becomes an empty pursuit that cannot satisfy the emotional and spiritual hunger within us. Money, when sought as an end in itself, leads to a constant cycle of wanting more, never truly filling the void inside. Power, when wielded for personal gain, breeds anxiety, loneliness, and fear rather than peace and connection. True fulfillment is not found in the fleeting things of this world, but in a deeper relationship with God. When we come to understand that we are loved unconditionally by our Creator, and that our purpose is to live in relationship with Him and others, everything changes. It is in this relationship that we discover the peace, joy, and fulfillment that transcend the temporary pleasures and successes that the world offers. God's love provides the foundation for our lives, a love that is not dependent on our performance, our wealth, or our power, but on His eternal grace. In surrendering our lives to this greater love, we find a sense of purpose that no amount of wealth or status can provide. Our lives are no longer about accumulating or controlling, but about serving and loving others in a way that reflects the love we've received from God. When we place our trust in Him, we are freed from the anxiety and emptiness that come from chasing after things that can never truly satisfy. We are given a new perspective on life, one where fulfillment is not based on what we acquire or achieve, but on how we live in relationship with others and with God. True fulfillment is a gift that comes from embracing a life centered on love, service, and the pursuit of a higher purpose. It is found when we stop seeking to fill the emptiness with the things of this world and begin to seek the one who created us, who knows our hearts, and who desires to meet every need we have. This fulfillment does not fade with time, nor is it dependent on circumstances. It is eternal, rooted in the unchanging love of God. As we turn away from the empty promises of sex, money, and power, we begin to find a deeper, more lasting satisfaction that brings peace to our hearts and clarity to our lives. We are free to live fully, knowing that our worth is not determined by what we possess or what others think of us, but by the love we have received from God and the purpose He has given us. It is in this truth that we find the true fulfillment our